Welcome along to the Richmond Ward Management Plan hearing and deliberations. If Renee would like to open us with a karakia, that would be great.
O morena tātou, nei rā te mahi atu ki a koutou, mo te kaupapa o tēnei ata, he karakia tīmata e te hui hui nei. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kinakina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora. Kia ora
Thank you very much, Renee. Thank you. All right, we'll start with some housekeeping. We might go around and do some introductions. We'll just go around the room quickly and we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm Glenn Dakey. I'm the Richmond Ward Councillor and I'll be chairing today.
Kip Nailing, Richmond Ward Councillor.
Morena koutou, ngā mihi Renee, the lovely karakia. My ko is Te Paso Takawinua. I am here nominated by Ngāti Rārua. Kia ora.
Good morning, I'm Jo Ellis. I'm a Richmond Ward Councillor.
Morena, Grant Reburn, Reserves and Facilities Manager.
Kia ora tātou, ko Anna Garrity Tokuingoa. I'm a strategic policy, in the strategic policy team as a senior policy advisor.
Morning, Richard Hilton, Reserves and Facilities Team Leader.
Morning, Kelsey McLean, Governance Advisor.
And online we have Councillor Mark Greening and Renee Love. So that's the team for today. Just some quick housekeeping. Welcome everybody and those on Zoom. Just a reminder, if you're on Zoom, to keep your microphones muted. And this meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council's YouTube channel later. Media may be present or maybe online. Toilets, if needed, are out the door to the left. If there's a fire, we meet in the car park behind the Armadillos building out the back. And if there's an earthquake, we pop under the tables, nice and easy. And if anyone needs it, there's hearing assistance hardware available at the back. Okay, and no apologies? No. Okay, nice and easy. Any declarations of interest from anyone? No. Also nice and easy, didn't think there would be any. Okay, that moves us on to the hearing of submissions. We've got two speakers today, Katie via Zoom and Alistair is going to speak in person. So if we're ready, we'll move on to Katie online to hear her submission.
Morena tātou, can everyone hear me?
Yes, Katie, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Dakey. I'm going to keep this really short today. I'm not going to take the full 5 minutes. I'm going to be commenting on the TRMP, the Reserve Management Plan as a whole. I'm not going to be commenting on individual parks and reserves because I don't live in the Richmond area. I live in Rockville in Golden Bay. I'm here as an advocate for dog owners Golden Bay. But after reading the Reserve Management Plan, I was actually really concerned and just felt like I had to make a submission. It was quite late in the piece before the submission closed at midnight. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge the council's work during the floods and the hard work that we're all doing, and just acknowledging that at the moment things are pretty tough for you guys and for the people living in Te Tuihu. Yeah, so it is a critical submission. Basically, I was reading through, and in the values for every single park, nowhere does it say that a value in Richmond is dog walking. It's completely absent. It's conspicuous by its absence. So are you saying in that document that's made it through all the people and all the strategy team that there's no one in Richmond that values any of those parks for walking their dogs? And that really concerned me as a dog walker in the Golden Bay, because I'm guessing that soon that the management plan for Golden Bay will come up as well. And I know it's hard for you guys when people don't submit on stuff, but as you know, the dog bylaw review was not even a year ago, and we had 644 submissions of people coming into the council chamber to express how important dog walking was. It feels discriminatory, I'll be honest. Under the issues for each of the parks, I think there are 3 mentions where dogs are an issue. So ergo, if dogs are an issue in those parks, they're also valued by the people in Richmond as well, because obviously they wouldn't be cited as an issue if they weren't also valued. So it feels incredibly one-sided. And I'll be honest, it feels deliberate. And I was actually really offended when I read the draft documentation. I kind of can't believe it's got to this point. It feels like it's, you know, maybe the value of dog walking was there and then it was taken out. I don't know, just crazy. And I know lots of people haven't submitted in your region for dog walking, but, you know, people are busy, they're not stupid. And I think, you know, democracy is built on trust, and we trust that balanced decisions are going to be made. And I don't think this is a balanced decision. I think this is not at all. That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, very clear submission. I think sometimes dog walking isn't deliberately left out. I think what it often is it's sort of seen as a default activity, but like riding your skateboard, it's probably not recognised enough. And I think the staff have recommended changes based on your submission. So we'll, as we get through the process, we'll certainly be looking to add that. I'll see if anyone on the panel has got any questions in particular. No questions? No, okay. Thank you, Katie. Very thoroughly understood. And I hope you're nice and dry over in Rockville.
No, Mihi knew it's very raining. Good. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Good morning, Alistair. You've got 5 minutes as well, and I understand you've got a presentation as well. So hopefully the technology works for us.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Just quickly to say that thank you very much for your time, and I also want to acknowledge all of the hard mahi that all the council are doing in these difficult times as well, and I also want to acknowledge the mahi of the officers in terms of all of the work that they've done as well. My name is Alistair Jewell. I'm a resident at 65B Wensley Road. You can see just up there where I'm located in regards to the particular parks. I've brought some pictures to the table just to illustrate the points that I made in my particular submission. I am a planner by trade, but I'm been told by my wife especially not to use planning language wherever possible, but the planning gaze does come in there, and I can't claim to be professionally objective. Quickly from actually just updating, having read the officer recommendation, I'm just going to give kind of a history in terms of it's mainly the earth mounds that are actually there that came about in regards to it, and just there is a response there from the officers, but it kind of kicks the can down the road in terms of a particular process, and I'm just going to go through to illustrate what the issue is, how it's really destroyed the usability of the park, and just to try and seek some more directive language, and in particular the earth spoil that's adjacent to the main playground basically on it. But I'll just quickly run through on the pictures. So these are just the dates indicating the makeup of the particular park where the property is, and you can see the key features on this is just to go main playground feature table, the reserves access points, oops, big fingers, is to go, you have your main access points and through routes from Harriet Court, Olympus Way, secondary not much used in terms of Squire Way, and then Chelsea Ave. So you've got movement pathways through there from pedestrians actually using it. Noting this feature, which is the historical one, was like a little bump track. I'll have a picture of it, which was more in terms of the user group, was just little kids confidence building in regards to it. And just acknowledging you've also got for the dog walkers as well, there's a bin there for dog business and the like as well. So that's kind of the focal point. Just showing how it's actually changed. Really quickly for the context is to go, that's then April 2023 before the works happened. You can see that adolescents have come in, you could say vandalized, but they've kind of dug up a lot because they do want more excitement, acknowledged. The bump track for the little kids is still kind of hanging in there, so it still gets a little bit of use in regards to it. And then looking at the works that came in, the path and the stormwater issues, great project. It just really strikes me, and had discussions with council at the time, that the poor contractors didn't have a reinstatement plan on what to do with the spoil, and they had to do something. And it struck me that I just got the sense that the parks staff weren't sort of leading the case to actually go, okay, we've got this, what are we going to do? And it comes down to, you've blitzed through what the kids' little bump track area was, and you got these two areas of spoil, and you can see where they're being put, and this is where it's being formed. In terms of the use of open space, it's just noting the best versatile open space is actually just open space without barriers, and where it's been put primarily here by the playground and the focal point is you've killed all of this open space. So now ball games get pushed to the margins. They don't have this area in here anymore. You've got barriers for people coming in terms of accessibility and sight lines. This was a focal point, birthday parties and the like. Now it's rarely used. And I know officers have said, oh, but kids like using that. It's just covered with weeds. It's not used. I mean, it's poor soil because it's got, you know, the kind of material, it's got some of the gravelly kind of stuff in it as well. And pretty much, you know, dogs will go sniff the weeds and win it. If I had young kids, they're now 10 and 12 now, but I wouldn't let them in there because I know it's just natural dog behavior to be in that kind of scenario. And when I'm working from home or sitting watching the TV through the gaps in the fence, I see movement. It doesn't get used. We don't see the parties there in terms of it being used. I've had a sheepish dad climb over my fence to retrieve a ball because they're pushed to the margins. So it's just going, look, there's a sense of urgency because it really has degraded the functionality and usability of this park. So that's again in terms of just talking directly to the wording in the report, which says, oh yeah, we'll go through a process, we'll take a look at this, that and the other, to actually acknowledge this was a change that wasn't covered by the previous reserve management plan. The contractors did their best with what they had. Geez, we've got to sort this. And it's really screwed it up, and actually going, look, can there be some language in there to be directive or emphasize on that particular pile? We need to get some kind of reinstatement going for the benefit of the wider community. Really quickly, just go through and go. And you can see this is a year later. Grass hasn't formed in regards to it as well. It's just sort of weeds hanging in there because that's all that can actually grow there as well. Just some pictures. This is just an example of the view beforehand. You can see that open space, flexible. You can understand why people have birthday parties on there, go there, focal point, come in with prams. You can see the low level of the thing at the back. This is it coming through. Just a note to say, look, they were looking at that thing by the kids' playground as actually for a bike park. They were just making it up as they went along. This is how it is now, weed encrusted from various ones, and this is pictures taken at various areas. I've done the thing accessibility. There's all of the barriers going through. Aged, my knees struggle with it. My wife has long COVID. If she has to take a doggy deposit through, it's a real pain, as well as, you know, you just doesn't have the functionality and the additional maintenance cost. That's just the example of the weeds, you know, through there it's uneven as well. So it's just going, it does need to be addressed in all the ongoing maintenance cost. And here just on the MTB area, this is just going what it was and the particular cohort of little kids confidence kind of thingy versus what there is now because they had so much spoil. And it's just the footprint, the run through all of those. And I guess the thing that I was saying up there, I love it. And I know people do actually want that. And there is a demand for it in the Richmond ward. I'm going to take a step back, think about Easby Park in terms of you then have the critical mass. It's a gateway. Naturally, people are going to be there. There will be maintenance, oversight and obligations, but it's actually better there because you'll have the more use. So you're getting more bang for your buck and the like, as well as, you know, it's the natural kind of attraction thing. And then they can go off on the parks as well. And the nature of the park doesn't have the through routes, and there's a downhill slope because they really want big air to impress their mates. So you can imagine in terms of the runoff and the run in on it. And really quickly, conscious of time, this is just showing there aren't the lines there. It isn't as used as much as the previous one was because it's too intimidating. There's too much. It doesn't actually do the cohort. Handful of people, intermittent use. You can see how it actually gets dug out and covered with the weeds as well. And just going, that's from in terms of just the amenity and the CPTED safety and visibility design guidelines. You're using the pathway. These are kind of like looking over to the Chelsea Ave linkage. It's a barrier. You have that. You don't have clear sight as well when you're going through. And this is just basically going through to go, what was contained in my submission, just going, please, priority in terms of removal of the spoil pile in the middle, rather than kicking it into a process, and actually acknowledge that. In terms of the big air jump, looking at, is it appropriate in that location? You can get that into a longer process, looking at other options, and just seeing if you actually want to actually have the recontouring as part of that to actually make it more accommodating as part of the wider concept. But acknowledging there, I do recommend operationally looking at signage and the like, because what happens is that kids, great, they do go in there, but they go beyond the footprint, dig up holes and things, so there's trip hazards and all of the maintenance costs. So please, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Much appreciated. Sorry for the length of time.
No, that's all right. That's all right. We're not too pressed for time this morning. Thank you for that, Alistair. Very thorough submission, very well detailed with photos, and it just certainly helps. I went for a walk through there yesterday and your points are noted. I'll see if there's any questions from the panel. Any questions online? Councillor Greening, do you have a question?
Yeah, Alistair, given your neighbouring it, you've probably got better observation of it than me, but at the far end, closer to Wensley Road, where there's quite a large open grass area.
Yes.
Do you think that is a better location for what you're contemplating, so the 2019 type mound? Because the mound was moved when they put in a path around it and moved it a little bit further in. That grass area closer to Wensley hardly ever seems to get used and just seems to be an absent space. Is that a better use for a mound area and therefore we can clear the middle? Or do you think the mound is actually quite good in that location and the grass open area near Wensley is appropriate?
This is where the planner and some of the urban design elements of that comes into play, where you do actually need to take a look at the movement patterns and all of the zones and all of the conflicts and how you're going to attract people in there. And I can't be completely objective because my property is down there and the dog will go crazy in terms of people. But, you know, taking the step back, I think you do need to take a look at all the movement patterns, what the particular zones are down there. And that is a bit of a dead space. And I was the one who suggested I wouldn't call it the bum track, but the perimeter track, because those were the kind of ones for activating the areas that are underutilized. Or that spoil pile in the middle, when it was going through, I was having correspondence to council saying, look, I understand you've got this spoil, actually look at putting it at the periphery, where then it's an area where people will go, kids can play on it away from the playground, you still retain the open. So all of these are actually need to be through sort of a little workshop basically in how you might involve the community in regards to it. So I'm not saying one way or the other on that. I do think it will be useful to actually activate those dead areas. How that is done, you've got multiple choices.
And the other observation, and well made, I mean, dog walkers do go through that area and connect with other reserve areas. But there's also, there used to be two parks. The first one's got smaller. Do you think that that park, which is also close to trees, would be more appropriate to develop a small children under 5 area, maybe fenced, and seating placed under those trees?
So by the smaller park, it's the one that doesn't have many features on it. Yeah, well, it all comes down to budget. I am really grounded in that, understanding the council constraints, but within there, it could do with upgrading. I do understand that, and I think in terms of putting fencing around it, there are some irresponsible dog owners. So actually, having a fence around and a place for kids, for those parents who do want to contain them rather than letting them wander out, there is benefit in that. But I think that's more an operational decision in regards to it. I view it as there's an opportunity there. All of these are actually about realizing the opportunities and things like going and actually across the wider network in terms of what is provided, not just this part, but also across, the wider network to provide opportunities to the Richmond community.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from the panel? No. Okay. Thank you, Alistair. Very clear, and that's helped form a good direction for this. and we'll note your point around wish for urgency on the resolution. So thank you very much for coming in today. Right, that concludes the hearing of submissions. If we'd like to move on to the next part, Anna, if you have something to say.
I think you just need to receive the submissions,
yes.
so those resolutions which are up on the screen there.
Do we want them up on that side? So do we have someone to...
Can we share the resolutions, please?
Yeah, thank you. So that Councillor Greening can see it online. Okay. So moved by Councillor Mailing. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Ellis. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All right. Now we can move on to the next phase.
Kia ora koutou. So in terms of the resolutions for the deliberations, there's some generic ones, sort of high-level ones, which Kelsey will share soon. And then there's also very detailed ones on a separate, and they're an attachment to my report. So I propose that we start working through them just from top to the bottom, I guess. We do have Steve Richards here for this part of the meeting to answer any questions about the concept plans for Berryfields and Rosales, but he'll probably leave after that. But otherwise there's Grant and Richard here to answer technical reserve questions. So because there's so many, are you wanting to just focus on things where there's...
I thought, if it's all right with the panel, I thought what we might do is take them more or less as read. Hopefully people have had time to look over them. I thought we might focus on particular questions that the panel might have around any outstanding issues. We might start with that rather than going through, because a lot of them are, excuse me, minor points, and perhaps there's burning issues that each member has, and we could spend a bit of time on those rather than diving down, and we take them as they are, if you're happy with that. So, Councillor Greening, would you like to kick us off with some questions? Did you have a question, Mark?
Just getting my mute off there for a second.
Okay, yep, go ahead.
I have a couple of observations, and I think it might also be useful, I think, to go through some of the parks. I think there's some groupings and there's some broader issues. Generally, in the Meadows area, the 3 parks that are in there, I think there's some themes around there. And I think you've had a theme already acknowledged through here on dog walking, and also I think there was a proposal in this in the report for a destination park over in Patton Road. I think generally when I read it overall and try to get some common themes, I think for me it's the Meadows reserves, in my opinion, need to be more orientated to the younger children, and the feeling from the community that I'm getting a vibe through all these submissions is more natural park area, concerned about noise. And when you look at the locations of those Meadows reserves, they're quite close to what will be possibly a school area. And there's also another proposal for Central Park. So I think there's some, given the concerns raised around the basketball court feature, I think there's an opportunity maybe to park that feature, forgive the pun, and see how the school develops and how other areas develop before jumping in and doing a basketball court or something like that. But to leave the space available should the development opportunity need to arise further down the track. Although I still think actually the common theme of the area of these parks should be really for smaller children who can't cycle away too far, either because they can't or because the parents won't let them. And the older children, as my experience, I'm probably bringing a bit of my experience when I was growing up in Richmond, is the older kids tend to get on their bike and cycle off to a park where they know there's a particular asset. When I was younger, we'd cycle down to Waimea Intermediate because they probably had a basketball court, and we'd all play there. So I think there's opportunities. We just take a broader approach to some of these planning issues. The other thing I want to say is the Patton Road Park. I actually think the theme there, and certainly some of the comments back, where this really needs again to be a natural area. I think the mood at the time of acquiring it was we wanted this to really be a more woodland area, and I wonder whether the name needs to have woodland in it, a woodland park. It needs to be more natural. We don't need plastic playground facilities in that kind of park. This should be a park where dog walkers can go through and enjoy a woodland experience, as could kids, rather than starting to put playground equipment in that park. We have playground equipment nearly everywhere else. Perhaps this is one area where we don't have plastic playground equipment, and it's more a natural environment. And I think maybe emphasising it's a woodland park and its name might provide that. So I think there needs to be a few principles applied to some of these things. So I just want to start off with some general themes, which was, I think, because Meadows has very small property sizes, small kids would benefit from these parks, and the theme should be maybe more small parks, and more older activities like basketball courts, maybe should even position near skateboard parks, which are just down the road and not far to cycle from Meadows, or maybe in Central Park, maybe where it's a commercial area, noisy anyway. A basketball court could be provided in near that space. Again, before we embark on those kind of things, we need to have a chat with the neighbours around it. But I think generally that's the observations I've been making. Also, and just a general observation on Easby Park, the theme there, and it's been a concern since I've been on council, and it's great to see the community really concerned about their neighbours, is the theme of we need to sort out the stormwater issue before you start settling in on parks. We don't want to have to dig them up again. So I think a strong theme is there, and maybe we need someone to come through from the engineering side of things, is to actually take the opportunity really to ensure that the stormwater system in there is more robust than it is. And everyone in the area has acknowledged that it probably isn't. And they've still seen some flooding coming from that. So, and if you look at the Easby Park stormwater system at the moment, the whole grating system is completely buckled. No doubt probably generated from having to clear it out all the time. So I think there's an opportunity there that we need to explore, and whether we can somehow make sure that that is done before embarking on any redevelopment of Easby Park, I think is really important. And certainly the residents in the area really raised that issue through their submission. So that's another consideration that I think we should be thinking of when it comes to Easby. And maybe it might be worthwhile just talking through these areas, these key areas of parks, and maybe discussing whether they should have this type of theme, and then we can get into a bit more detail around them. But I think, and Chelsea Avenue again is another kind of that vibe of, let's make sure that mound is for the smaller kids, which I think it's carried away, but maybe there's an opportunity to create something else somewhere else in that park. Totally agree that the middle mound needs to go. That's never really used, but certainly that the original mound was well used, as acknowledged by Alistair. And I think that theme needs to come through. And I think there's an opportunity, given that there is also a preschool facility just on the corner of Wensley, not far from Chelsea. I used to have a lot of mothers coming through, parking their prams up. Again, this is why I was always pushing for a little children's area where they could, with confidence, put their kids on the park and not be too concerned that they're going to stray off. I've seen this done in other parks as well. And it's also near trees, so you could sit under the trees and have natural shading for those kind of birthday party events, or just mothers gathering either before or after dropping off or collecting the preschool kids and bringing them through into the park. So I think there's an opportunity there that we need to seize. And given that the RFC fund is sitting at 7 million, I think we have some opportunities to do a few things. in the past, we haven't had these types of funds, and we've been very prudent in our approach to funding. So I think we have an opportunity to just tidy up those kind of things. So I think there's some themes here. So I don't know whether the chair wants to work through on that kind of approach.
Yeah, okay, I've got a list, so that's a good start point. We'll start with that, or it'll be overwhelming. So we'll go bit by bit there. So we'll start. If staff could give an answer, we'll just go stage by stage. We'll take the meadows first, the playgrounds. We could just have some commentary around age of user and location of equipment to neighbouring properties. Do we have something in the draft to cover that? And I think we do. Just a comment around what ages will these meadows parks be for, age of user, and do we have something in there to cover off where the playground equipment will be located?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Steve Richards. So thanks through the chair. So with the Meadows side so far, we've developed, obviously we're hearing about Central Park, and there's a which is well used for young children. So the whole design for that area was for under fives, and that's been really successful. And the developer's asking us for even offering to add more equipment in there, which is really great. Summersfield Park is just quite a passive space and has got a basket swing and a little piece of exercise equipment. So that's catering for a wider range of young, but for older kids as well with the basket swing. The third park that we're just embarking on is Roselli's, and we're wanting to have a theme of much more natural, and I think we've circulated that concept plan already, with the Richmond Ward councillors and with the accessibility forum. And so we've got fully accessible elements in there, along with that design to keep it much more natural. So there are three opportunities there that are, like at this stage, offering something a little bit different at each location, but definitely take on board the thinking about catering for the younger age group. We also think about the possibility of the school and trying not to replicate, items in close proximity, because that's not, good use of our resources. But there's so many unknowns there at the moment, so it's a bit of guesswork. But with Roselli's, the final comment about Roselli's is to say that we were looking to cater for a wider age range than Central Park, so slightly older as well. It's still the younger kids too.
Thank you. So also, Councillor Green mentioned the proximity of playground equipment for those neighbours in the Meadows area, and I know there's a paragraph or a clause in there that does note that officers will consider the placement of that within the design. So that's that covered. Councillor Greening had a comment around Patton Road and about the woodland theme, which I think through the submissions was also repeated by the public for a very natural space. Is that recorded, in your view, in the resolutions? Does that come through? Has that been captured?
Through the chair, I think it is, because it technically already is developed like that, because it's an established there's so many trees in there already. I feel like it would have to take a major change, like raising all those trees, to change it away from being a woodland. I don't know if the public understood that it already is developed. Maybe that wasn't made clear enough in our Shaped Tasman question. And I think the concept plan just kind of builds on that, increases access and then develops a natural amphitheatre and allows for the possibility of mobile food carts, excuse me, etc. But I'll leave it up to the other reserves teams to comment too.
Just through the chair, I think it would be fair to say as well, and Richard can probably add to this, that there's opportunities for more planting there, for specimen trees, and to create more of a woodland theme than perhaps there is at the moment. And so we can certainly take that on board, and also we noted the comments about the playground, but we're, I guess, at a concept stage at the moment. But yeah, Richard, you might have some more to say.
So the bones are there. There's some fantastic trees. The idea of broadening the tree species and interest would go a long way. With the reserve and the development around the reserve of various different properties, I think it's going to be a long-running process. So we will be relying on other properties developing and getting increased access. So to start with, I would suggest we're going to achieve access from Sabine Drive through to Pattons Road, and we'd achieve that by putting in a path that will circumnavigate the reserve and providing interest and easy access for most people to get around, and that would be the key for that reserve to start with. There may be a small parking area down at Pattons Road, which would probably be the only parking to start with. Maybe as other properties develop and we've got legal access, then maybe we'd have another parking spot at the top. But at the moment, I think that woodland theme and easy rambling path or that takes you around the reserve, nice easy gradients, would sort of enhance that passive recreational feel and woodland type environment.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the changes have covered that intention of the woodland area and the natural elements, so I'm quite comfortable with that. Councillor Greening made a comment about Easby Park stormwater, and I believe a resolution's been added that recommends that any work that's done in there be consulted upon with the other departments. Councillor Mailing has a comment about stormwater in general.
Yeah, look, Eastby Park, the documents are already done, as I understand it, for the stormwater to put a secondary flow path through there. And we've been waiting several years, but it won't fix it totally. They have to fix up above, which may be some form of retention pond, but I know that the documents are prepared to go out to tender for that secondary flow path, which will certainly improve the flow. But we've still got, when you get something big come down, you can still get problems.
Richard?
Through the chair. So the secondary flow path will reduce the amount of flooding downstream. It won't prevent the cover area overtopping, and when that does, it goes through our playground. So with the recent event, it went through the main climbing frame area, and this is the second time in 3 years. We haven't reinstated that, and we are intending to remove that piece of equipment. And we're talking with the engineering about if it's feasible to put a small bund in to protect the remaining areas of the playground from washing out and then transferring material downstream to people's properties. There is a recommendation that most people like the older equipment in there, so an upgrade and a tidy up and a reorganisation. But within that footprint, I'm hoping we'll be able to reinstate either a climbing frame type structure that we have to take out. But we are consulting with the engineers on, can it be bunded? And is there any side effects for our neighbours if we do bund that? Are we directing water into our neighbours in bits and pieces?
So it sounds like any work would be in tandem with the infrastructure department and nothing would be done that would have to be redone. Councillor Greening, did you have a question on this?
Yeah, so I mean, there's also a few other things that came through in the Easby submission. So I don't know if we want to get into more detail on those, but and maybe also on some of the Meadow Park things. If we have the opportunity to somehow to use our RFCs to help out that process, then we should take up that opportunity. If it's implicit as part of the construction of the park, then I would have thought RFCs would be able to contribute to that funding process and accelerate that situation. We've never had the amount of funds in our RFC before that we have now, so we have a little bit more room to do that kind of thing, and I think we should take up that opportunity. And I think we shouldn't be sitting around waiting. I think we should actually be pushing to get it sorted out to have the right solution in place as part of the park reconstruction, because then we can use some RSC funds to do that stormwater thing, to find a stormwater solution as well, rather than be told there's not enough budget in the stormwater account, which is what we're constantly told during annual plans and long-term plans, and everything gets deferred in stormwater. So I'm encouraging the use of RSCs to accelerate the stormwater solution as part of the park reconstruction, if that's how we can get those funds across into the stormwater in that area. So I think I'm more thorough. Also, can I say that when we start to do these things and we've got a more firm idea of these plans, I think it would also be useful to consult the neighbouring residents of these parks to make sure they're aware of what's coming in, and for them to give an opportunity for some additional feedback, and for us as councillors to hear that. We haven't got into detail on Easley Park, but again, some of the observations about Easley Park were, because it's prone to flooding, I think there's concerns about the use of bark, and I think that was a fair observation, that it does tend to flow down Selborne Avenue. There is a little trench down the side of the grass area fronting Selborne, which is, I suppose, there to mitigate some flooding into those neighbouring properties where that kind of canal, if I can call it that, it's not really a canal, but it's a little pathway for water not to go over, a little bung, I suppose, needs to be looked at. And I'm just wondering whether we will be seeing a more detailed plan of what will be done before any action occurs in that area, and whether there will be any activity or any planning in that grassy area, which has always remained completely open, and not much has happened in that large grass area. So it would be useful to have a bit more of a concept plan for Easby and how this all integrates and where things will be positioned. Certainly take on board the comments that they didn't want the park split, and they didn't want the park to have bark which will carry if there is a storm event. So I think those are fair observations, and we don't want to block any downstream stormwater systems from bark being carried down the street at the moment. So I'm hoping that that will be taken into consideration as they look to develop their concept plans.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'm sure they will be. I think that a lot of those points have been captured and are reflected, and I'm sure that staff will do consultation as required as a normal process where needed. It's generally best practice nowadays anyway. Grant, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just to clarify, in terms of the infrastructure work, we were unable to use RFCs for that stormwater work, but we would potentially be able to use it, obviously, for the playground redevelopment. Or
so we can use it for the library, but we can't use it for the construction of a playground that is being flooded.
Oh, we can talk about RFC use forever. I mean, that's a broad subject, but in general, point noted.
I think there's room to play with RFCs in the stormwater, given it impacts on the playground. And
okay,
its use
thanks. Thank you, Mark. We'll move on. Does anyone else on the panel have a question? Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a bit lost now, but can I just make a comment, and then I think I have some questions. Thanks for the report. I found the response to a lot of the things raised in submissions were incorporated into the plan, and I'm generally really supportive of what's come through. I'll start with those parks and Berryfield developments. I just kind of want to make some comments. Having gone through processes with neighbours and staff explanation of how those parks are used and how they have been designed, I'm actually super supportive of it. I think some of the submissions, when they're talking about, the younger children play facilities, when I've explained to not submitters but people in the community about how those parks have been set up, targeted at various age groups, I think they have found that that's quite workable. And personally, I've found, each park has been functioning quite well, and with the future planned use of them, it's very good. With the development of Rosales and that, more opportunities to have some more adventurous play, and the design at Escott Park for older children has created some of that. And then Mark's comment about being able to move, you know, having younger children at the parks within the subdivision and then moving out. We've got Jubilee Parks quite close with the, well, skate park at this point, accessible for those older children. So I'm actually really supportive of the plans that have come out for that area. I personally am a bit mixed. I understand people's call for the development at Central Park, but there's increasingly less sort of, it's only a very small space. And so while personally I think I'd rather see the green, I actually understand the community's request that there is a bit more play equipment there because it is extremely busy. So I'm supportive of that part of it. I've also noticed the comment made some time about being consulted on the parks. There has been quite a bit of consultation with direct neighbours as that development's happening. So I don't have too many concerns there. Then I think that's most things raised. Oh, the basketball. Yeah, that's one thing. And I know we've had discussions about that. About being very close to residential areas because it can be quite continuous, the sound of a basketball, and having had neighbours that had amazing sons who loved their basketball, it can be quite tricky to live with over a period of time, that dull thud. It's actually surprising how difficult that can be. And I was hoping with the development of the school, you know, that would have been an ideal place to see that happen. I think it's not likely, but is there any potential, given that the Education Department has put that on hold and with no point in sight of when that school is going to be built, and that there is some discussion about wanting, you know, a basketball facility somewhere, about doing some sort of plan where it could go on those school grounds so that it doesn't interfere quite so much with neighbours, and it could potentially be the, yeah, it's a bit of a side thing, but because I have, you know, had discussion with quite a few parks neighbours who are concerned about having a basketball court in some of those smaller parks within those areas, and there's still quite a few residents close to that Central Park area. So that was just something I thought of overnight when I couldn't sleep.
So perhaps, yep, we'll do some commentary around the issues that may or may not exist with a basketball court and any other options we have to consider.
Mm-hmm. So through the chair, I don't think we have any say over Ministry of Education land. So, I mean, I guess there's nothing to start like we could ask, but yeah, I'm not sure how realistic that would be if they haven't got actual plans of what that site layout would look like. We did look at two other options. So that at Central Park, there's just enough space probably to put in a basketball court, which I'll let Richard talk to, and then another location could be where the old beach volleyball sandpit kind of area is near the skate park at Jubilee Park. But then also, if you didn't want it at Lambton, you could potentially put it at, now let me get the right one, is it Kimberley? Is it right? Yeah, Kimberley. We wouldn't recommend Chertsey, and Ascot's already developed. So there's kind of those three options really on council land. So I'll just let Richard talk a bit more about whether it's feasible at Central Park first.
So the half court is 14 metres by 15 metres. There's the larger grass area is an oval shape. If with the removal of some shrubbery, then it would fit in. It would be at the forefront on Berryfield, and so it would be very visible. It's the furthest point from any neighbours, but it would dominate the area. But something to consider. Jubilee Park is possibly an ideal place. We've got good connections at the moment, but we'd have to guarantee we still retain them connections with the bypass. Otherwise, yes, buy the old sand volleyball court and the skate park, there would be space for a half-court basketball court.
Councillor Maley, do you have a question? Then we'll go to Councillor Greening.
I just think that it's important that we cater for teenagers as well as little kids, and there needs to be balance. And when I read the submissions, look, some people certainly don't want a basketball court, because I can imagine because they'll start early and they play all day. But it's one of our biggest growing sports, and we certainly hear from the youth council about that. So, but we have to be very careful where the location is, and it may be that Jubilee Park is the best spot. I'm not sure. You know, I think we need to do some more thinking on that. We don't have to make a decision today, I would have thought. But I think we need to cater for not just little kids, but for bigger teenagers as well. And it's like the pump track. You know, you have a little one, and I see the one that's used a lot in Saxton, the little bump track that the young kids are on all the time, and then the bigger kids want to do something different. So you have to cater for both. But of course, if you don't, the teenagers will start building things. And so, but what I saw in the Chelsea app isn't a good look now. But I just think we need to think about teenagers as well as just little kids. But the location is critical, because if you get it in the wrong place, it'll cause you problems, as they have in the past.
Councillor Greening.
Yeah, I think probably the Jubilee area is well connected. There's already a skate park there, so those teenagers already know that location. There is, I know, some discussion about a car parking area behind the tennis courts. And I just wonder whether that might be a good location, given it's well fenced by the tennis court area, and could be used in the interim until we find out what is happening with the schools. So that might be better bang for buck. If we're looking to seal that area for car parking, we could interim put a basketball court there before we allow car parking. And then once we know what's happening with the school, then we can decide exactly where we want to put a more permanent court area. That could be another option. But if it's failing support around the table, then next to the basketball court seems the most obvious option. I think it would also provide access to basketball courts, not only from the Meadows side of Jubilee, but it would also provide access from Richmond school side to basketball courts as well. And I think that's bang for buck. Teenagers cycle around a lot from my own experience being a teenager in Richmond. So I don't think we necessarily have to park it in the middle of Meadows. I think given the small size of the lots in Meadows, I think it's important that small kids have a park area to play in and don't get intimidated by larger kids. I know that, fair comment by Councillor Mailing, that the bigger kids will develop something. If a basketball court is provided for them, then they won't have to develop it. And if we put, and it's quite interesting, you see next to the skateboard park, the BMXs were clearly using that skateboard park as well. They've got a little BMX track going on down there as well. So I wonder whether there's also some opportunities to develop or extend a bit more MTB type of arrangements down there as well, since it seems to be naturally developing a little bit from what I've seen. So I think Jubilee Park might be a better space for that type of environment, and the big kids can easily cycle down there, and they will go there if there is the facilities that they want to use. It will become its own little destination. So I'm more in favour of these meadow parks being for a younger age group. So I don't support the basketball courts going in where they're proposed at the Ascot Park area, whatever we're calling it. I think we just need to, as probably been suggested, just we're not in a rush. We can park it. It can always be revisited later. But I think there are better opportunities and better spaces for these types of facilities for older kids. So I'm more in favour of it going down towards the Jubilee side of things. And the cinema wall, just had a question about the cinema wall. Is that being located right on the corner? Because I was kind of looking at the plan, and I had to walk down there, and it's like that's going to block a view to the park quite a bit. I don't see the benefit of a cinema park wall. It just seems.
Thank you, Mark. I also had a question on that, which was around the cinema wall, how it works, how we deal with graffiti on a large light wall, and is a cinema wall the best idea when often cinemas tend to be a mobile screen, you could move it to park to park. Do you have any commentary around, I mean, it doesn't have to be decided today. I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but just do you have any commentary around how it would work, or if it's worked somewhere else before, how it operates?
Through the chair, I think the original concept came from one of the locals to Ascot Reserve, and they were quite keen to show films for the neighbourhood. So, and I think they have done with mobile screens. So them comments got in there, got a little bit of traction, and how we would proceed with that we would have to look at how we could actually maintain that asset going forward. So. So yes, we'd have to look very carefully on what could be achieved, how it would impact the neighbours' sightlines and ongoing maintenance.
Thank you. So we'll put that in the, I mean, it doesn't have to be decided today. That's a design thing, but obviously you've noted there the concerns around how it would operate. With the basketball court, I think what we're hearing around the table, unless anyone has any other comments, is that really Lambton Reserve is not the appropriate place given the concerns. And I actually spent a bit of time looking online at other basketball courts in urban areas around New Zealand and Australia, and it was a perennial issue for neighbours, and it didn't go away with the install either. It wasn't always, even with best intention, the people who opposed it generally opposed it for a very long time and with some very certain intentions. So I guess my recommendation is that we consider Jubilee Park, and it's going to add to the area. It would add to the skate park, and there's also a resolution to retain the skate park where it is and to do modest upgrades. And I think the two of them together would actually be a real improvement for the space. It really bring it up. So that would be my recommendation as we go forward. Is there any other questions from the panel? Joe?
Not a question, but just a comment. I think the only issue that we still have to bear in mind is how that final bypass or that happening would affect that accessibility from the meadows. And that's, that's why I agree with the whole point about maybe waiting to see, but having a plan in the background.
Yes, noted. The early indication on the Hope bypass is that it may stop at Queen Street, and that NZTA in developing it would have to provide some connection, likely to, if it were to go that far, would have to provide some connection to the Berryfields area. What that might look like, underpass, overpass, traffic lights, that they would have to take into consideration. And I believe they'll also have to take into consideration cycling connections as well. So very long way out. And point noted though, that anything that happens there, we would want to, including the car park, that we would want to consider the future of the bypass. Comment on that? Anything to?
Just through the chair, just to comment that there's currently 3 connections through to Bedfield, and all of them are heavily used, but particularly the Potomac connection via the skate park.
Thank you. Okay.
Through the chair, you could choose to amend the wording of Lambton Reserve to be more clear that you definitely won't be putting a basketball court in there if you want to, but it already kind of says that we're just going to consider relocating it somewhere. But you might want to add a new policy into Jubilee Park to say a basketball court will be constructed there if that's what you wish.
We'll give that consideration. If we get any more amendments, we'll put them together. But at this stage, it's probably fine. We may add a resolution somewhere in there for it being considered in Jubilee, which would then cover that. I don't think we need to particularly exclude it, given the direction today and the fact that the Jubilee resolution will probably cover it. So just keeping it simple. So there's no other questions. Mark, have you got one more?
Yeah. So it's just, I know it was, and responding really to the submission made this morning. Will the documentation acknowledge that dog walking is a legitimate activity, and that, I mean, it already exists. I mean, I've shared some photographs with my colleagues in Chelsea Avenue. I was just looking at Chelsea Avenue, and someone just walked past with their dog and actually had a chat with them. So they were quite enlightened and quite happy to hear about the Woodland Park opportunity. But there is a how should we put it, a connection, natural connections that we're building where dog walkers are following from park to park. I was interested to see someone down along Borricks Creek walking their dogs, and then later in the day I saw them in Wilkes Park, and then further, so they were doing obviously a walk through Richmond. So there are a lot of dog walkers who are making these connections between parks, and we provide doggy bag facilities at entry and exit of these parks. So I think there should be some acknowledgement that we are still supportive of dog walkers through our parks, clearly controlled. Yeah, so I just think that should be acknowledged today. I think it was a fair submission, fair comment, fair observation, and that should be integrated into our documentation given its absence.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Based on Mrs. Laver's submission as well around dog access and the lack of recognition in the policy, I believe that extra paragraphs were added to the policy to reflect dog use and the possible need for a dog park as well within the ward. Ursula, did you have a comment?
Yes, there's through you, please. I was going to wait until I did talk through all my bits, but I just wanted to clarify that it's important. The council's got a really important responsibility to obviously provide places for dog walkers, but also to understand that there's a big conflict in some areas that dogs and protection of Indigenous species doesn't mix in certain areas. And so creating areas for dog walking specifically and highlighting the significance of that to the public, you know, will hopefully show that the council is supportive of the different values across. But having a blanket statement saying across all reserves, dogs are, you know, supported, I think that would be dangerous, because I've got comments around the from a Te Ao Māori. In that context, there are certain reserves that are very fragile, and it isn't appropriate for dogs to be in that place, but there needs to be places for dogs. So just wanting to say, please don't put blanket statements in, because that would be potentially a can of worms. Kia ora.
Thank you. So, I think the comments that were added pretty much reflect that. They do generally say that dogs are a part and part of the community, but in the right place and in the right environment. And so hopefully the resolutions that were added reflect that, and I think they do. Anna, did you have a comment on?
Do you want to just scroll down, Kelsey, too? It's near the bottom. It's O is the clause, so we can read it together.
On screen, please.
She's just getting to it at first. It's right near the bottom, like almost at the very last bit. Yeah, just above that. Up a little bit more. Yeah, it's that one there. OO.
On screen, please.
Coming, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you.
So yes, as the chair said before, we recommend adding a new subsection into the Part 3 section on recreational use of parks and reserves, the issues and opportunities subsection, because this is where all the different recreational values of reserves generally are discussed. So this is, do you want me to read that out, or are you okay just to read it? You okay to read it?
No, we can read it. And I think the important thing to remember is that where dogs are allowed or aren't allowed is set through the bylaw, the dog bylaw. So this process isn't saying where dogs can or can't go in the end. That's actually set through the dog bylaw. So this is just acknowledging the importance of dogs and dog walking activities, and acknowledging it in the policy, which is probably something that's just been omitted before rather than anything deliberate. It's really that it's And we've got more dogs in the district than ever, so it's becoming more of an issue, that conflict. So it's good to have it recognised. Joe, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just have a question. So in the dog control bylaw, which is on another screen, it specifically talks about ensuring that there are areas for dogs. It acknowledges that people have dogs and people and dogs need recreational areas and things. If we put this into the bylaw like this, does that mean that we have to give more regard every time we're doing a park about what we're providing for dogs? Because I'm just wondering if we're adding something that actually creates a bigger problem later, because dogs are allowed most places by default. And yeah, I just want to check that by putting this in, we're not actually going to give ourselves more of a problem later. Because I'm fine that we acknowledge dogs and that they do use our parks, it's, you know, but there are lots of places for dogs, and are we going to have a problem?
I'll give my chair's opinion before I go to staff, but the way I read it is saying we need separate places and we need to identify dog walking and exercise as a activity, and that we need to consider that in the design of reserves. So that may mean that we may need dedicated areas separate to avoid that conflict. But Richard, did you have a comment?
Yes, through the chair. So the dog bylaws do state that there's no dogs within a certain distance of playgrounds and picnic tables, etc. So in some reserves, it does exclude dogs completely. So some separate areas are valuable for dog walkings.
It very much becomes the case. Often it's a bit like motorbikes. If you don't give them somewhere to go, they go everywhere, and you're forever having to. So I think this acknowledges that if you have a couple of places where it's suggested, you're actually going to reduce the conflict in the other places. That's the way I read it. So I don't have any particular concerns, but noted, Councillor Ellis. Mark?
Yeah, I agree with your observations, Ken. I just want to make the comment that we use a lot of our parks to connect between spaces, and so you get a lot of dog walkers using the paths to make the connection, not necessarily going into the park. And I think we don't want to put people off walking their dogs, as they're entitled to do, and feel they can't go or use the park as a connection point. But yeah, it's administered by the bylaw. I just need to make sure, you know, that we also value dogs coming through the park. And I think the observation was, because it's not mentioned, it feels like dogs are being I say explicitly, inexplicitly excluded from our parks. I think that was the general feeling from the submission. So just acknowledging that, and we don't have to say that they have specific areas, and this is where the dogs are going, because we have some parks that people walk through with their dog, not going into the park. That shouldn't be excluded. So hopefully the bylaws, and I don't have it in front of me, enable that to occur. I think that's basically what people are asking for, is just acknowledging that it's a legitimate value in our community, which it is, because we provide doggy bags. Chelsea Avenue provides doggy bags. Easy Park provides doggy bags. So I think the bylaws adequately cover it. So some form of wording doesn't have to be as explicit as you provided, just acknowledging the value of dog walking in our parks, and that they're administered by the dog bylaw, I thought would have been sufficient.
Councillor Mailing, did you have a comment?
Other than within our district, we've got places for dogs off leash nearby. And I've been sitting on the Waimea River Park, and there certainly is an area, a small area in there that we could allow them further upstream. And people currently walk their dogs off leads in that area. Often it's on the other side of the river, sometimes it's on this side of the river, so it's outside our ward. And the biggest dog-free area is outside our ward, is at Rough Island. But the trouble is, and I've been a dog owner for 30 years and I'm not now, certain dog owners don't control their dogs at times, particularly when they're off leads. And I've sat on more dog hearings this term than I've sat on ever before on council. And that's because people don't have their dogs under control and they do things they shouldn't do. So you have to have balance. We have to allow for dogs, but it needs to be appropriate behaviour and in an appropriate place, and that doesn't always happen.
Thank you. So I think at that point, does anyone have? Oh, Joe, you've got another one?
Yeah, can I actually have an answer to the question? Because I don't think they've had a chance to answer the
It's specifically
question about,
around.
does it specifically add to problems later?
I probably have to think about it more, but I wonder whether we need to refer to the bylaw in that new policy, because the way I see it is that the consultation options for dedicated dog exercise areas should really be through the bylaw. So maybe just adding that wording in there would help to clarify that.
Ursula, did you have a comment?
I was actually going to ask the same thing. We were talking about the bylaw, and it's sort of this. It's not part of this, but we need to be really cognizant of it in this regard. So yeah, I think it's really good to link them, so that people refer to that. There's quite clear whether it's agreed or not. We're not debating that, but it's something that's dictating these parts.
We could just add after options for dedicated dog exercise areas within the Richmond ward as part of the Tasman District dog bylaw reviews or something like that. If anyone has better wording, let me know. Is it called? Is it the official name of it? Tasman.
I think less is always more, but I can't see the wording. Oh, there we go on screen. I just think we acknowledge the community value of dog walking and acknowledging that it needs to be consistent with our dog bylaws. Full stop. One sentence.
So not have a policy. It just include it in the issues and
just
options.
Acknowledging the value of dog walking in and around our parks, consistent with bylaws, and then that's just one sentence, and then just delete all the rest. Specific dog areas, we haven't put any of those necessarily in. And if they are, they're there. I think that's the criticism, was it? We just weren't really acknowledging the value of dog walking, and I see it around Richmond, as I said, speaking to a dog walker, walking through Chelsea Avenue, connecting down to Ben Cooper, and they were using the path in the Chelsea Avenue Park to get down to Ben Cooper. So, and they were a pretty responsible dog. They had their dogs on leash and were walking along in a responsible way. So I always think less is more.
Everyone happy with that?
Just clarify, is it going to be no policy, or would just be the issues and options text that you're wanting?
Sorry, can I throw? I just wondered, so you're not acknowledging the dog bylaw through this at all?
It is mentioned throughout the reserve management.
So the key is, I mean, a policy is a statement of intent. So it's just saying that the council support dogs and support places for dogs where appropriate. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not onerous. It's just sort of saying
that's enough.
And so it's sort of, maybe that'll be enough for the people that feel that the dogs have been left out.
So Kelsey, I think we need to delete the fact that it's add a new policy. I think it would just be added to the one above it.
Yes. I'm suggesting all that red text could be deleted and you just put in that sentence.
Does everyone want all that text deleted?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's you could go either way, really. I mean, it's that'll be fine. We can move on with that. They will cover it. I mean, but we've heard, throughout the processes, including the bylaw, the popularity of dog walking and such, and so it's been gathered before. So that covers it, puts it in the policy without being overly specific. If everyone supports that, good. Okay. Yeah, you can delete. Yes. Yeah, and then that captures it in a very basic way, and how that gets interpreted by staff and brought through will be fine. All right. Any other points?
Sorry, is this in whole? Or
yep, we might as well go in whole.
Because we just kind of, I'm feeling like each person brings up something new, and then other people miss their opportunity
to just in anything in general. Otherwise, we can work through each one, but there is a few. So maybe if we just keep going with questions, if you've got another question, Joe, just otherwise we can go through the entire resolutions if you wish. Ursula?
May through you. What we suggested at the beginning, which was quite good, was each of us bring up our comments in one, which Mark's done, and it would be really great if we all had an opportunity to do that.
That's the stage.
If there's anything overall, would that be okay? Because Renee hasn't had a chance either.
So if we want to go around, just generally anything. If you've got a list, we'll burn through it.
Sorry, but Renee's on. Renee, do you have anything?
Yeah, kia ora. Yeah, I realise this was something that we all spoke about in the last RMP with the dog control bylaw. It seems that we all know that there's people who walk their dogs responsibly. I've just got more of a question where how council sits with our actual dog control officers, just to support Ursula's comments just about in terms of keeping our wildlife safe in conservation terms. I think with those irresponsible owners, do we really see the dog control officers out and about, especially in protected areas?
Thanks, Renee. That's typically comes under a dog bylaw and enforcement policy, so that's not part of today's review.
Yeah.
But I do note your points there, and that has been raised through other processes, including the dog bylaw review, very strongly. And council has captured those through other methods. So note your point there, but it's not directly part of today's hearing. It's a funny way we do things, but it's a different policy. So do you have any other questions, Renee, around that?
No, just that. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's a different way we do things here. Everything's broken into categories and it's got its lump.
Yeah.
So Ursula?
Actually thinking about more general comments. So is it all right if I bring up some general comments? So thank you. I was really pleased to read the staff recommendations, and I know that you're very highly qualified and able to write policy and wording on the behalf of the committee. But I just wanted to highlight a few things from a Te Ao Māori Korowai perspective and acknowledge what you've put there. So that biodiversity, so number one is biodiversity and ecological connectivity, just to highlight that that's a key element of Te Ao Māori, that connectivity between reserves. That's quite pertinent when you're looking at what you might do with reserves over time, depending on proximity and what you intend to do in that space. Also acknowledging the wording around sensitive and riparian margins, and we're balancing a lot of values, and as we can see, but they can all be accommodated, I believe. It's just making sure that things are in the right places. A consistent theme of the iwi management plans is eco-sourcing plants, so that's great. I'm just sort of supporting and acknowledging the recommendations from the submissions. And I just had a question around nature-based stormwater options and what you were referring to when you mentioned that.
Sorry, can you point me to which?
Oh, sorry. It's under biodiversity and ecological connectivity, and it just says that where possible, nature-based stormwater management should be specified where practical. But I just wondered what that was. What you're alluding to there.
It was in response to submitters' request for that type of wording. But if you feel that that's not a well-known concept, we could edit it.
No, I was just interested to know what examples of nature-based stormwater management.
I'm not a stormwater expert, but I guess it's making sure you have riparian native species, and like what we've done down at Potama Stream, recreating habitat instead of just a stormwater channel type thing. Yeah.
No, I'm not criticising it, just saying it was just checking in. And the other question on that one is whether the ecological monitoring includes cultural health monitoring opportunities.
It's only stated broadly, and it can include anything.
Do any kind of monitoring. So there's a synergy between the two. So it's quite nice to have a a broader basis for looking at health of an area. So number 2, iwi partnership. Great to see that there's also submitted support for co-design and iwi being part of that process, acknowledging the history of the area. I guess I actually went back and talked to Ngāti Rāroa about the naming thing, just so I could feed back, and they said that the general consensus is that there's obviously there need to be a bit of a process for that, recognising that there are different associations with different places across the rohi. And so it's not under, upholding the mana of each iwi, but in general, names are chosen through their significance to events or special historical, to do with history, people, events, relationships, special associations. So that would be the nature of the naming if you went down that process. So that's just sort of everyone's, so that would be something that would be appreciated. The Waimiha and Coastal Edge. So great to see acknowledgement of the submissions there. All of these recommendations within that Te Ao Māori context fit very well. So I just want to acknowledge that. So thank you. But just highlighting a few, including the buffering that we've talked about, habitat protection, and there's a mention of pest and weed control. So pests are anything that, pests are quite an interesting concept, because you can talk about, that's another can of worms that I'm not going to open. There'll be animals that roam around, cats and dogs and other things that could be pests in certain situations. So I guess that's just sort of the highlighting that having places for appropriate uses, and if one of the values is to protect habitat and nesting sites, then really careful to separate those things out. And that's sort of a big conflict area that unfortunately the council has to move into. I also wanted to sort of applaud you on the targeted education, because I think highlighting positive opportunities is a really good way of getting people to feel that they've been heard and recognised in whatever capacity. So thank you for that. I hope this isn't too long. I went through and I wanted to sort of say how well this has been done. Yeah, it won't be too long. And then I guess we've already talked about it at length, but that whole dynamic between dog walker freedom and protection. And I think when, being able to look after both. Now, in sense of, make sure I've got a few things here. Yeah, targeted education. The iwi partnership or engagement, I think in particular relevance to coastal areas and areas of association and occupation and use. So I just wanted to highlight that those areas along the coast we had this come up under another hearing, that there was a lot of history that people weren't aware of that went on there, and values that hadn't been brought to the fore in the past. So it's quite nice to have that. It's really important to have that opportunity to learn the depth of the values that around the region, all values, but the depth of history here. Then I just looked at, I was pondering with the flood events, how important community resilience is and individual resilience, because I have been struggling, to be honest, in the Motueka Valley. But I really thought that the comments around creating opportunities for people to connect are really positive and really important. In itself, it's really the communities and the community linking in with parks and reserves and natural places is a place for. It's highlighted here as a really important part of our community resilience. And then people connecting to these places also feel that they might look after them more, if you get that sense. So hopefully it's everyone, including everybody. I'm an optimist at heart. No comment. But you have to really, don't you? Because otherwise it would be. And the last point is in relation to specific areas. I saw that that there was comment about having protection of ecological values as being quite high in terms of interconnected, and so that would include things like the mixed forest, protecting forest remnants, protecting the inanga spawning, and just prioritising those values where they're sensitive and significant. So I thought you did a great job, and just acknowledging that the wording that you choose, I know you're going to give it back to us, but I know that you'll do a great job in bringing all this together. So I haven't got any comments about specific wording. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Very well spoken. It sort of articulates that the plan, although essentially for a reserve, a park, there is a lot that goes into it, and it is an evolving space. And as we learn to take care of the environment and manage it in a responsible way, these things come to the front. And like a lot of the things we do here, they're sort of done without thinking about it, but there's a lot more behind that sits, that community values. So, Joe, did you have some comments you wanted to add? You had a list there, perhaps?
Yeah, are we moving on to some of the other parks?
Yep.
Thank you for that comment, because that was really lovely. I thought that was really beautifully articulated. I agree with what you've said, and it does show how important these spaces are. So thank you. I don't want to go on to other parks after that and be more specific, but I just want more work around the idea of that bike pump track in Easby Park and how we're going to work with those. And then I've still got, there were some issues, some points made about that Patton Road Park, and Councillor Greening's comments about not wanting stuff there. But the way I read the submissions, people were wanting things there. But I'm wondering if there's been some confusion about use of the words of destination park, because to me it sounded like he was commenting that we were wanting to put a destination playground there, whereas that wasn't how it read to, because I read that submitters wanted some sort of play area, although not overly things. So I'm just wondering, can we have some clarification about that? Because I think listening to Councillor Greening's comments, it was, to me, that's what it was sounding like the issue was. And for me, I didn't read it that way.
Yep, through the chair. So I included an analysis in my staff report there about should any of these elements that we'd put out there for consultation be excluded, and basically was recommending that they not be excluded, but that we take a staged approach to development and just, slowly start, putting bits in. But I don't think that the destination theme was ever meant to be about a destination playground. It was like a destination rural park, woodland park, more than anything. Like, yeah,
no, that's good. I wanted to check that, because I was just wondering if there had been confusion, because that wasn't the way I heard it from comments earlier. So I was just double checking that that was still not the intent. No, that's great. Thank you.
And your question, Joe, around Easby Park bike track, pump track, did you have a specific query around that?
No, I'm just wondering how we may manage the points raised in public forum. And because the way I heard it was that he was generally supportive of there being that kind of facility, but moved to Easby Park. But then he was also interested in seeing something on the periphery of the park, because I'm wondering if that track was put in the middle to avoid disturbing neighbours, but it's had that perverse outcome in the meantime. So just wondering what staff would like to plans are for that area.
Through the chair. So the path through the middle is the design line. It's a worn path which shows that it's very well used. The concept of a pump track or a track is actually to separate the walkers from the bikers or the mountain bikers, and to give Easby Park, to give them some interest to keep them separate from the actual walkers. So it would be something that people would possibly use as the exit from the wider reserve area from Kingsland Forest.
So Mr. Jewell, who spoke today, spoke on Chelsea,
Yeah.
and he's suggesting or commenting that perhaps the older mountain bike facilities be moved to Easby, as you've spoken to. He mentioned the earth mound, because I'm sure Mark will probably bring it up, the earth mound and his keenness to see something progress sooner rather than later in removing the central mound from the park so it can be open space again. The resolution today won't need to have a specific timeline. That's not our job here today. But do you envision that will take a long time? Are you seeing how quickly are you able to move and accommodate that request, and when might that park plan and the following design be implemented? Just a guideline, because obviously Mr. Jewell would like it yesterday, because it was originally presented as being temporary, and as everything takes time. So do you have a comment around the timeline for that?
Through the chair, the plan for Chelsea, I think, has been probably delayed by 2 years. So that's something that's on our work plan for this year. The history behind the soil, unfortunately, comes down to budgets. And the path that went in was a combined public access and overland water flow area, and the budgets at the time were very limited, and it was possibly not the best decision, but it was cheaper to leave the soil there, to grass it over, with in mind that the reserve was going to get developed later on, and there was a design plan, and some of that material could be used. Of course, time has got away with us, and it's 2 years later, possibly 3. So it would be really nice to do a design, understand what we do need, but the soil with the budgets could be removed at any time.
Yeah, I think Mr. Jewell would like that, noting that, that we're always limited by budget and timing, and that the will might be there, but we've got to pick the right time. Councillor Greening, did you have a question?
Just to clarify, because it sounds like there was some confusion with what I was saying earlier on the Patton Road Park. And just to clarify, I did quite explicitly say that I don't want to see it as a park filled with another plastic playground. We've got a lot of those already around. It should be a woodland park. We don't need to put another playground in and create another conflict between dog walkers and young children. We have enough of those. It's in an area that small kids wouldn't go to anyway, so there was no point putting a plastic playground in there, and that was part of this destination proposal. So that was what I was trying to clarify, and that should also, again, it's also not appropriate that it be a destination, because that will then attract unwanted traffic. It should be just another natural reserve that people can walk to and walk around, and they can also drive to as well if they want to. Certainly share the concerns of the residents on Coppola that they don't want to see a massive splurge of car parking all the way down that street. It's a quiet area. So that was in regards to that. Just as a general theme, and I just thought I might bring this up, but maybe it will come through in more detailed plans as councils are circulated to them before anything is actually finally developed in these parks. In Meadows, and again, just taking on the theme of acknowledging heritage and place, I just wonder whether it would be nice, and this is probably not consulted on, but maybe something that needs to be discussed further down the track. Berry fields. It was a berry field area, and it was also a dairy field area. I just wonder whether it would be nice to acknowledge those two activities through some of the equipment that we put in, like seating around tables could be little cherry stools. I've seen these used, or a berry stool, if you know what I mean. So it's shaped like a berry or shaped like a cherry. Just bringing in some of these themes of their heritage, or maybe a cow and a small calf located somewhere on the playground where kids can clamber over it or sit on it, get a photograph taken or whatever, but acknowledges that this was a dairy area. And just small acknowledgements of heritage, I think, would be useful. And again, I think we had some observations about Maori heritage as well, incorporating that as well into these types of parks. So just the opportunity to acknowledge heritage and history would be really nice in some of these parks.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I believe there is a resolution for the Berryfields area of that staff will endeavour to incorporate history where possible within, I think the lines are something like within budget or scope or something. So that has been acknowledged, and that came through from some of the submitters as well as a very clear theme that they felt that some connection to history would be valued. So I believe that has been captured. And note your points, Councillor Greenie, around pattern reserve. Destination has changed. The meaning of it now means something else, and I don't think that was the intention. I think the intention is a woodland, and that every element be a natural theme, and I think that's reflected in the wording now, and again matched by the submitters who also supported that. So, and the concerns of the residents in Coppola Crescent and around traffic and that has been mitigated by the changes to the scale of the amphitheatre and the proposed layout and the reduction of the car park and the consideration. So I think those concerns have been covered. Don't know if there's anything to add to that.
Just looking at the proposed new policy one, it reads, manage pattern reserve primarily as a destination space focused on passive recreation, ecological restoration, community connection and sustainable open space values. So if you want to remove the word destination, you could. But
yeah, maybe we should. It's only if Kelsey's happy with that. It's just one strike.
Could we
it's
also
just one strike through? Yep, Mark, go ahead.
Could we also acknowledge in the description of the park that it's a woodland, pattern woodland park or something like that, to acknowledge the essence of it? That would be really useful, I think.
Oh yeah. We'll just have a check mark, and we'll just check.
In the first paragraph, it says the vision focuses on providing a large woodland park with accessible pathways, integrated natural adventure play spaces and picnic areas, aiming to become a central green heart as surrounding areas urbanise. So it's already in that first paragraph.
Yeah. So I just think maybe it would be useful putting it in the title of the park as well, that it's woodland, because people won't know it'll just be another park otherwise.
Well, if the panel would like to recommend a new name, you can recommend one.
Well, I just think it should include woodland, because we don't really have a woodland park in the Richmond area. So I think it would draw attention to people. Oh, it's a woodland. I might go and have a look at it.
So I don't know if you can see it, Mark, but we've just put a strike through destination. So that's been removed. The word destination has been removed. So that should cover that. Because it's a word that now carries extra meaning for some people in the public. So we probably shouldn't promote that. Often they associate with a bigger area like Margaret Mayhew or something that's often referred to as a destination. So we probably should. So that's a good change.
And my suggestion was that maybe we put woodland in the name of the actual park. So I'll leave that one there for staff to think about.
Okay, thank you. Renee, did you have any comments in general about your happiness with the overall plan or any other commentary? I'll take that.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's not always easy to get off mute in a hurry. Go ahead.
Just in regards to this, I think it probably needs to, could there be more emphasis around the iwi partnering? Just because it talks about eco-source Indigenous plantings, I'd probably like some more emphasis, just that iwi have a bit more inclusion within that.
Okay, thank you. So within our section acknowledging iwi, do we have anything about involvement around eco-sourcing? And I'll let you have a look through the policy and then we'll come back to that. It might take a bit of hunting to see if it's covered off in there or not.
Specifically for pattern?
No, just in general. Is it something we do, and is it included within our policy? That because that is a relevant point, because eco-sourcing is a specialist area, you know.
So for the way the plan's set out, there's like I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Renee. At the front, there's a lot about working with iwi and weaving Te Ao Māori values through the whole how we manage parks more generally. I feel like it is covered, but were you meaning in particular for one park?
Sorry, I'm just trying to put my camera back on. I just mean in regards, just because touching on Councillor Mark's comments about it being a woodland area, and we're really trying to keep those native ecosystems and riparian plants within that area. Just how it says ongoing partnerships with local schools, iwi, maybe some wording just around iwi input and concern with Indigenous plantings, whether that be rongoa or...
Okay, yeah, so there's more generic ones that cover all parks earlier on, but we could, sorry, which number policy is it in pattern? Oh, I've lost it. There's too many policies.
Yeah, if you just go up a bit.
Oh, number 7. Number 7, is that right? Foster ongoing partnerships with local schools, iwi, and conservation organisations. Oh, that's about delivering environmental education, volunteer plantings.
Sorry, that's just my phone. If you just go the importance, so submitters.
In the issues and options section. Back submitters emphasised. Oh yeah. So the second paragraph, submitters emphasise the importance of creating diverse, climate resilient native ecosystems through extensive eco-sourced Indigenous plantings, particularly in riparian and wetland areas, which also serve critical stormwater management functions.
Yeah.
And add in.
And oh, sorry, it's moving.
The second paragraph there. Of the pattern
maybe ongoing partnerships, maybe up of it.
So what I can suggest is if we want to have a 5-minute break at some point too, we can get that wording in there. So maybe we'll just take a note of that, and we'll let Anna and the team make a wording up for incorporating that while we have a 5-minute tea break. So shall we have a 5-minute tea break now, and we'll get some wording added in there to cover that, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, I'll talk to you separately, Renee.
Okay,
so 5-minute break. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. We've got some resolutions on the board to move. I don't know, Anna, if you wish to give a quick summary of these or just to speak to it before we look for a mover and a seconder.
Do you want me to just show you what we did before with Renee?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you.
That was to do with pattern reserve. We've added the word kaitiakitanga into the issues and options text, and then also into policy 7, just because at the moment it just says stewardship, and elsewhere throughout the reserve management plan we have used kaitiakitanga. So thanks for raising that, Renee. Sorry about that omission. Sorry, poor Kelsey's scrolling towards it's near the end. Oh, you're in the wrong one. Should be highlighted yellow there. Yeah, it was. So policy 7 there. So now says to include kaitiakitanga and deliver environmental education, blah, 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 what it used to say. And sorry, above that, it was in the issues and options above it, that yellow highlight there. So, and that ongoing partnerships with local schools, iwi, and include kaitiakitanga.
Yeah, I'd say the panel support that. I can't see any objections to that. Good addition. Adds a bit of meaning and strength to it, actually. So, yeah, support that.
And then I think before you move any resolutions, it would just be good to talk about Pukeko Park's name and just have a discussion about that. We haven't really had a proper discussion on that one.
Pukeko Park's recommendation is that iwi be consulted for a suggestion for a name, and that I believe that the gathered submissions, the popular wording will be shared with iwi for consideration as well, because there were some actually quite good suggestions from the submitters, so quite supportive of that. seems like a good way forward. Does anyone on the panel have any commentary on that? Generally support? Yep, okay, so general support for that. Mark, did you have a question around that or comment?
Not fast enough to put up my hand for support. That's right. I think just for consistency, I think the concern is that we've got some names where people don't know where the locations are. A lot of our parks are named basically by association with road. But I think we should be rolling out a policy of bilingual naming, I would have thought, for our parks, consistent with our partnership agreement, and consistent with Tasman's own branding. So maybe something for staff to consider.
So through the chair, the reserves general policies document does have a reserve naming process outlined in it, and that document will be reviewed. My next two tasks are the Golden Bay Ward Reserve Management Plan review and the reserves general policies review. So we could relook at that more generic, high-level thing as part of that review, I feel.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the other thing through this process is, in hindsight, busy, floods, whole lot of things going on. Would it be ideal to have iwi consultation and then have that come to the hearing so we could gather it at this point? But a lot of process, a lot of information, a lot of feedback, and with the floods and everything. So it wasn't quite possible this time, but I think for future hearings, it would be the way to go is to reach out earlier and to bring that into this process. Just to keep it really consistent. But yeah, no, support that method. So we'll look forward to hearing what might come out of that.
So did you want us to talk about the highlighted resolutions on more generic ones, or
perhaps just that the fact that the amendments will be they're covered in the attachment. So the things we've mentioned today, those important points, you've collected those and they'll come through, and that highlighted just notes that they're in the attachments, and so that everything that's been mentioned by councillors and panel members today has been captured, and that will be fed through those. And the other highlighted there just recommends that the basketball court not be located at Lambton Reserve, but the preferred panel option is to be considered being cited at Jubilee. And that doesn't lock us into having it there. It just says that we think perhaps that would be a better option to consider.
Wording needs to change. I think is not required.
Done, I think. Is that all, Mark? Renee, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, sorry, not a question. I think you just covered it then, Chair. Just in terms of Pukeko Park and the renaming, that there's quite a lot of iwi statutory acknowledgement in that area. So yeah, going back to mana whenua and Potai will be good to discuss further.
Thank you, Renee. We also acknowledge that iwi always press for resources and do a lot with very little. So we also acknowledge that although there's all these processes going on, we aren't always in a position to be able to respond as quickly to everything as they'd like. So we also acknowledge and thank iwi for their participation. Okay, so looking for a mover or a seconder, of the Councillor Alice, you happy to move? Looking for a seconder. Ursula, you're happy to second? Okay, with that in mind, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? None. Very good. Okay, so that everything ticked off, I think. There. Yep. So that moves us to the end of the hearing and deliberations. Renee, would you like to close us off with a karakia, please?
Okay, so pai, kia ora tātou, he whakakapa I tēnei hui, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai to tātou āreki, ahi karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitaka ki te wairua tapu, ake, āmene. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your participation today and excellent work. Cheers.